Are we on the AEM?
Ruh-roh. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Dune Addict YouTube channel. So as you can see, today we're back at the house. Got another delivery from California the other day. My buddy Frankie just bought this car and kind of wanted us to go through it. Sounds like the CVs are empty, so we need to pop some grease in there. Sand Cars Unlimited. Really nice car. A little bit older build. Got this cool killer crushed velvet on here, and bypasses in the front, which is what I told him. He was looking at cars, and I said, if you're gonna buy a car, make sure it's got bypasses in it already in the front. So should be a cool car. Probably handles great. Probably Dune's awesome. It's got a little bit of a problem. It's got a J35 in it that's turbocharged. And it's not, he said it's not making any boost. So we're gonna dig into it, take a look at it. It does have an FMU down here. I was looking at that earlier. But what I did see is no missing link on the map sensor and no map clamp in the wiring. So I know Comtech makes a digital one that I've used before. You can hide it in the harness. I did not see one, and it's got a stock ECU in it. So rather than dig through all this stuff and try to make this work, we're just going to put an AEM and a set of injectors in it and get this thing running for him for New Year's. So it'll be his first trip out with the car. We'll get it to boost. And then I think we're going to put a little bit of a firewall in here. We'll just put a temporary piece of aluminum down here for him, just to get that area covered up. It looks like this car may have had a bench in it in the past, because these floor panels are different than these. It looked like it might have had a bench that went across. Maybe, maybe not, because these seats all match. But anyhow, we're going to pull the seats out, and we'll make them up a little temporary firewall there until we get some time to completely take the back out, and we'll make a complete firewall that goes all the way across. But we'll get them something temporary in there in the meantime. So yeah, guys, just plugging away, and sand car after sand car. The panels for my buddy's car from also from California. So let me shoot back over here. So this car I showed you guys earlier, it's the one under the cover with the panels off. They turn those panels around in one day. So they got them stripped for me, and I've already picked them up and dropped them off over at the powder coater. So those things are going to be done, they said Monday or Tuesday. So I'll have those powder coated panels to go back on that car, then that thing can come out to Glamis, and then I'll be delivering this car for New Year's out in Glamis as well. So we're going to dive into this thing, get this thing torn apart, get it ready to get some injectors put in it, and get this FMU and all this crap ripped off of here. For those of you guys that don't know what an FMU or a missing link is, I know I've maybe covered it in a couple of my old videos. Back in the day, before there was really standalone management systems, or before anybody could afford one for these cars, we had to trick the map sensor into reading boost. So what they would do is a missing link stands the map sensor up taller, and there's a little bypass valve in it. So no matter how much boost you force through the pipe, it'll only let the map sensor go up to like 4.8 volts. And that way the ECU thinks that there's no boost going into the map, because what the map sensor sees boost, it'll freak it out, and the car will instantly go into limp mode. The other thing is what you do is for fuel. So you can't put bigger injectors in it because there was no way to control them. So you use the stock injectors, and you use this, what's called an FMU, a fuel management unit. So what that thing does is it's a boost dependent fuel pressure regulator. But it's, I don't know what disc is in this one, but in these there was a disc for every 1 pound of boost that it would jack the fuel pressure up like 20 psi. So basically what would be happening is you're running, you know, under boost 6 or 7 or 8 pounds, you might be running an additional 80 pounds or 100 pounds of fuel pressure through the injectors, and literally forcing fuel through the injectors so the motor doesn't go lean. Are they safe? Do they work? They absolutely work. A lot of cars like this that have run those setups have run for 10, 12, 15, years in the dunes every season and worked. I've done a couple of cars where we've ripped that system out and put an AEM system in it with a set of injectors, and we're making 50 to 70 more horsepower on 4 or 5 less pounds of boost. So definitely can make more power with less boost. It's way more safe to run injectors in a standalone and tune these things. So it's the next day. Got my girl home, and she drove real good actually. I still need to work on the toe. I'm gonna wait. Quad's coming by, hang on. Set the initial toe on it. I'm gonna wait to redo it until I put my big tires back on once I get it out in the dunes. But yeah guys, she drove like a dream, and well, on the street anyway. And I'll be loading this thing up on the trailer and taking it out to Glamis with me next week. In the meantime, we got the AEM and the injectors for this car, so it's already starting to get late, so I'm not going to start pulling this apart today. We'll wait till tomorrow morning. We'll get this thing pulled apart, we'll get the injectors installed, the AEM in, and see if we can't get this thing making some boost. So in the meantime, we're going to pull my car in, get it parked back here, and get her put away. All right, so we're back at it today. We've got this SCU, Sand Cars Unlimited, pulled into the garage here. We started taking the top hat off for the intake manifold, and the secondary butterflies were still in there, so we went ahead and removed them. We're not going to need those where we're going. We're going to go ahead and get this intake manifold pulled off and get the injectors put in, and then get the old AEM Series 2. So we got a set of 550cc injectors to go in. We're going to get them in and get this thing running. So guys, we got the upper intake manifold off, and as you can see, we're down to the injectors. And whoever worked on this car prior to me kind of did it exactly how I would have done it. When you flip this manifold, because this manifold is flipped, you have to block the EGR port, which I haven't seen where they blocked it yet. It might be in the bottom of the intake. Oh, I see. They did it right there in the head. But you have to either flip the fuel rails and put the fuel lines out the back here, or front, whatever you want to call it. I like to leave them in the stock location. This bolt hole down here will line up. Let's see if I can get you guys in there. That bolt hole will line up. That one will not. So you have to, you know what, let me flip this over for a second, guys. See if we can't get you in there. So that one lines up. This one will not. You have to re-drill it. So you have to re-drill the fuel rail to get the second bolt in there. That's the way I do them. Just because, for ease of leaving the fuel lines right where it's at. So when you're flipping your manifold, you can either flip the rails, which I don't like to do, because then you've got to run a fuel line all the way up here, or you can just re-drill it, which is what I prefer to do. All right, so now that I got the injectors in, I was just looking down at these intake manifolds, and you can see there's some welding that was done right. Let me get you in there, right down there. That's for the cylinder crossover tubes, the cylinder head crossover tubes. So what that does is it helps distribute vacuum evenly to both sides of the head. Sometimes they blow off, especially in a turbo application. So in a turbo application, I would cap these off. But naturally aspirated, I always run the crossover tube. It helps the car run a little bit better on the bottom end. It helps distribute vacuum between the cylinders, or between the cylinder heads evenly. So yeah, see, they welded that side shut too. But because this is a boosted application, I understand why they did it, because you don't want the hose to blow off under boost and have it create a big vacuum leak while the intake manifold's on, because it's kind of a pain to get it off. So, well, we got our injectors in, guys. I'm not going to give up my big secrets on what injectors I use for these. I mean, it is what it is. They're injectors and they're blue. Do your research. And they are an OEM injector. So, but they're 550 cc's. So anyhow, we're going to go ahead and get these put in and get the intake manifold on. We'll get the ECU thrown in here, get the tune flashed onto it, and get this thing fired up. All right, well, we got our injectors in. We got the intake manifold put back on. We removed that FMU, ran a new return line for the fuel. Got the little tablet plugged in here. Let's have a look. ECU connection error, so let's fire it up. ECU's connected. All right, we're gonna go ahead and fire this thing up. Yeah, just like that, she fired right up. So all that's left now is just to button everything up, put the back seat back in, clean up some of that wiring. This fuel pump doesn't run off the ECU, so I'm gonna wire a relay in there so the fuel pump runs off the ECU. We'll button this car back up, and then it's boost time. We'll go give her a test. All right, guys, so got everything wrapped up in the back. Still got the seat out, but we're gonna go ahead and fire this thing up and take it for a little drive and see if this thing actually makes any boost. The old owner said 12 pounds, but like I said, there was no kind of choke on the map, so not quite sure if it made any boost at all, but we're gonna find out right now. This thing definitely needs a set of plugs. I pulled them out. It's got 5s in it, which are way wrong. And the gap was wrong, and they were just fouled and old. Like I said, if this thing was ever boosting before, I don't know how they were doing it. Let me turn this down. If they were making boost with heat range 5 spark plugs in it, I pray for this motor. So anyways, guys, we're gonna go pick up a set of plugs, get them put into the motor, and then it's starting to get dark, so we'll gap the plugs and put them in tomorrow, take this thing for a test ride, and get her boosting. All right, so it is a couple days later after that horrendous test drive where we got no boost and the car was breaking up. I pulled the spark plugs out of this thing and they were trashed. So got a new set of plugs, got them gapped down to 18 thousandths, and then went and drove the car again and only made like 1.5 pounds of boost. Turns out that, let me look over here. Took this wastegate off. This wastegate was kind of stuck open. I'll show you guys this. And so you can see, sorry about that, guys. You can see that that's moving around on there on the stem. And if we pull up right here, we got a torn diaphragm, which is why it was making no boost. So I jammed over to my storage. I had an extra wastegate. It's my spare one for my car. I got a tile wastegate right here, a real tile, not an eBay special. I believe this has a 7 or 8 pound spring in it. So we're gonna go ahead and fire this thing up, let her warm up for a minute, and then take her out for a test and see how she does. We also did an oil change in this thing, so I'm gonna open the gate up here, pull this thing outside, take her for a little rip. We'll take you guys with us. So I'm not sure what happened here, guys. We're gonna take a look right now. I shut it off to let it cool for a second before I got back in it, and I went to fire it back up and I got no fuel pump. So we're gonna dive into a little troubleshooting here. I'm looking over here at the fuel pump, and for some reason this green wire should be the hot lead. That's what comes off of the relay, and they've got it tied, a black wire tied into it, and they got it grounded to the ground of the battery. So I'm gonna snip that off. I don't know why anybody would have grounded the hot side unless they're looking to burn something up. But yeah, we'll have another look at this and see what's going on here. All right, well, it's just a loose connection at the fuse box down there for the ignition switch. We're gonna hop in and take this thing for a little rip. All right, boys, we're taking her for a little rip. As you can see, I got my hat on backwards because it already blew my hat off, so we're definitely making boost. Looks like it's about 5 or 6 pounds, but this thing rips. Take it easy through the neighborhood until we get on my street. moves pretty good. Gonna let this thing run for a while to see if we can get the fans to cycle, and then she'll be on the trailer and off to delivery to my buddy on New Year's. So another turbo J35, another happy customer. Guys, well, that's gonna wrap it up for this episode. This car is done. For now, it's done anyhow. We've got a couple more things we're gonna do to it, but everybody's kind of out of town right now. So when we take the car out for New Year's and deliver it, I've got a blow-off valve coming, because for some reason, this thing, the guy said, was on 12 pounds with this tiny charge pipes. There's some electrical tape there. Anyways, there's no blow-off valve in it, which is kind of scary. So we're going to put one right here. We're going to TIG weld a flange in here. We'll put the blow-off valve right here. And then we're going to build a little firewall for this thing just to seal up that, because the guy who owns the car, his kids are worried about that area. So we'll get that sealed up, and this thing will be a cool little ripper. So anyways, guys, like I said, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you give us a like and a subscribe. We'll see you in the dunes.